Hey guys, I'm going to be doing a presentation on building a healthy home for an infant and toddler. There's 4 main components on building a healthy home: physical, cognitive, social, and emotional. And we'll start with physical development. Chapter 4 really discusses the different points of this. And there's 3 main categories: learning capacities, motor development, and perceptual development. So, starting with learning capacities, according to page 133, babies come into the world with a built-in learning capacity that permit them to profit from experience immediately. And there's different ways that homes can promote this. One way is through imitation. So babies learn through us modeling and us showing them. And essentially, imitation is copying behavior of another person. So parents could promote this by teaching them to wave bye. So every time that you say bye, you can wave. And then eventually they will learn to wave goodbye when they say bye. It also explains that imitation is mirror neurons firing identically when a primate hears or sees an action and when it carries out the action on its own. So a way that a family can promote mirror neurons in the home is by giving their child opportunities to copy those actions. And that could be if you want to build some blocks up and then knock them over, and then you would ask the child, hey, can you build up these blocks and knock them over just like I did? And then that way they have to remember back to what you had built and then imitate it. So this goes along with operant conditioning, and there's 2 types of operant conditioning: reinforcers, which is giving praise, and it's also more than just giving praise. It's a stimulus that increases the occurrence of a response. So this could be as simple as when you're potty training your child. After they successfully go to the bathroom, you would say, oh, good job, you went potty, way to go, and then you give them a high five or a piece of candy or something, and that's going to make them want to go to the bathroom to receive that praise and get that desired response from you. And then another type of operant conditioning is a punishment. And this could be that if a child is hitting a sibling with a block, you take the block away and say, no, we don't hit our brother with that block, so we can't play with the block anymore. And by removing the stimuli from them, they're no longer going to want to do that. Another type of physical development is motor development, and there's 2 types of motor development. There's gross motor development, which is like the arms and legs, and then there's the fine motor development, and page 137 discusses both of these. Fine motor development is smaller body parts like your hands, your feet, your fingers, and toes. So we'll start with gross motor development. That's usually what starts first. And a type of this is going to be walking. And our book explains that babies should be walking by 11 months and 3 weeks on average. And a way that a family can promote this is having safe furniture around their house and having the child opportunities to pull up. And then place toys scattered out away from the furniture that they're pulling up on. And that way it'll give them a reason to want to walk away from the furniture. And then there's fine motor development, and page 139 discusses how grasping affects a child and their motor skills. But before they can master grasping, they have to master other things, such as reaching, and that would be more of a gross motor skill because you're reaching with your whole arm. And once they master reaching, they're going to move into grasping with their fist, which is an ulnar grasp, and then grasping with their fingers, which is a pincer grasp. And page 140 discusses both types of these grasping. But a way to promote this would be to put a mobile in your child's crib, and they'll reach up for the mobile. And once they're successfully reaching for that and they're at an age where they can pick up things, you give them Cheerios if it's safe for them, and if they're at an age where it's safe to eat Cheerios. And they'll begin by reaching for it and grabbing it with their entire fist. And once they have it in their fist and they learn to move it to their mouth, then eventually in a couple months or weeks, they'll move to just using their fingers. And once they move to their fingers, that's when we move to the second type of the pincer grasp. And then there's perceptual development, and that's when they learn about their surroundings. So speech perception is one type, and that's when we use our hearing, and that's to readily detect sound regulation that will facilitate later language learning. And then there's depth perception, which is using vision, and that's to judge the distance between objects. So we'll begin with speech perception, and this is about hearing, as I mentioned. So one way for a home to promote this is by speaking to your child and reading to them, but not only reading to them, but read to them books that has small or larger fragments of sayings. So like the dog sat. And then you can talk about, oh, look, the dog sat, and you could show them the wording there. And infants focus on larger speech segments that are critical for figuring out meaning. They recognize familiar words and spoken passages and listen longer to speech with a clear cause and phrase boundaries. So again, you can point to the pictures and then be like, oh, look, that's a dog, and show them the word dog, and then that'll just help them later on with their reading. It's something you can add in. And then you have the vision and depth perception, and that's developed through children having opportunities to explore their environment. So you should place toys around the child that will require for them to reach for it. So a way that you can do this is by sitting their child on the floor and putting toys that are at a safe distance. Children will learn eventually to not reach over so far that they'll fall, and that will be that they are learning their depth perception, because they'll remember like, oh, I reached too far, so I fell reaching for that one. So eventually that'll be how they learn that. And babies will quickly learn when an object is too far. And then also, babies scan the environment to find things that are moving, and this improves over the first half of the year as they have better control over their eyes. So in order to promote this, you should have objects that move and have the opportunities for the child to grasp it. So you could be moving a block around and be like, oh, look at this, and it just teaches them to move their eyes. Then we have cognitive development. Chapter 5 really does a great job of discussing this. And there's two types of cognitive development: information processing, and that includes attention, memory, and categorization, as well as language development. And then cognitive information processing attention. We'll start with this one. And according to page 163, a toddler who engages even in simple goal-directed behavior such as stacking blocks or putting them in a container must sustain attention to reach a goal. So a way that you can do this is by asking your child to do something like a puzzle, and sit down with the child while they're working on their puzzle, and you can help them put it together or let them do it. And then at the end, when the puzzle's completed, you can praise them, and that'll bring back that positive reinforcement. And they'll have to have used the attention to complete the puzzle, and they'll get to see the end goal that it was completed. And attention is something that's so important for us to teach our children from an early age, because it's something we use all the way through life. Next is we have our processing memory. And there's two types, recognition and recall. So recognition is noticing when a stimulus is identical or similar to one previously experienced. So for a way to promote this, we'd have the child press different buttons that on a toy that gets different results. So if the red button plays one sound and the blue button plays another sound, they will learn that that red button always makes that one sound and the blue button always makes that other sound. And this has a lot to do with the operant conditioning. And then we have the recall memory, and this is remembering something that is not present. So you can ask your child a question about their day, asking them earlier like, oh, what did you do at daycare today? And if they didn't remember, you can tell them, be like, oh, did you, have snack? Did you have goldfish today? And that might jog their memory. Another way to promote this in the home is to ask them to bring you something from another room. So if you're in the living room, ask them to go get their purple bear from their bedroom, and they're going to have to use their memory to remember where the purple bear was in their bedroom. And then we have categorization, and this reduces the enormous amount of new information infants encounter every day, helping them to learn and remember. And so a great way for us to help our children with this in our home is by getting different containers for them to put their toys in. So separating, food toys into one and cars into another and then blocks into another bin. But then also when you're playing with your child, sit down with them and be like, here, let's stack all the red blocks together, or let's stack all the blue blocks together. And that'll help teach them their colors, as well as using that categorization to teach them that. And we have our language development. Page 178 explains the one way that parents can support a healthy home for language is through infant-directed speech, and that's a form of communication made up of short sentences with high-pitched exaggeration, clear pronunciation, distinct pauses between speech segments, and repetition of new words in a variety of texts. So a way that a parent can really do this in their home is through reading those short books like I was mentioning earlier. And that could be a picture book or, like Cat in the Hat. Those are all really good ones. They've got the short sentences and the phrase that we use, cat sat on a hat, or there's a hat while cat sat. But it doesn't have to be rhyming, just short phrases that they can learn. And then something that leads us into our emotional and social development is Erikson's psychosocial theory. And there's two big things that children develop at these early stages. And the first is trust versus mistrust. And a parent can help them grow trust by the quality of their caregiving. So a parent should soothe their upset child and calm them instead of walking away and leaving them to cry. Now, there are the cry out methods, and I'm not going to go into all of that because sometimes that does work. But you shouldn't ever make your child feel like they're neglected. It's really important for them to feel loved, and that builds the trust with them. And then also we've got the autonomy versus shame and doubt, or autonomy and versus shame and doubt. And it's important that the parents give children decisions to make, but we need to make sure that we're giving them safe choices when we're making. So this could be as simple as when you're getting your child dressed in the morning, give them two options for shirts. Do you want to wear your red shirt or your blue shirt today? Both are great options, and a child's not going to get in trouble for choosing one or the other. So make sure we give them safe options. Or we can also, do you want a turkey sandwich or a peanut butter and jelly sandwich? Just give them those options. So let's talk about emotional development. Chapter 6 discusses this, and there's two major points that I'm going to go over today. Self-conscious emotions, as well as emotional self-regulation. So self-conscious emotions are pride, envy, anger, and wrath, those type of things. And it's important that a parent helps promote these emotions in their child and teach them that. Page 188 discusses this. So a parent can teach pride, for example, by praising their child when they do the correct thing. This also brings back to the positive reinforcement from the operant conditioning when we talked about the other types of development. So a parent can, tell them, way to go, you did such a great job picking up your toys, I'm so proud of you. And then a child will want to, reinforce those, but they're also proud of themselves. It teaches them to be prideful themselves or have self-pride. Not in a bad way, children should still have that. And then we have self-regulation. And this refers to strategies we use to adjust our emotional state to comfort levels, so intensity, so we can accomplish our goals. And we need to teach our children how to manage their emotions. So, sometimes they get frustrated if they're sitting there building something and they're not getting it just the way they want it. They might get angry and throw the toys, and we need to, let them know that, hey, what you're feeling, that's okay. You're frustrated. And it's okay to feel that, but the way that you're handling it's not okay. And so instead of getting on to them, you can just show them, hey, you can stand up and stomp your feet and say, I'm frustrated. Or another thing that you can do is just voice it. Man, I don't like that I can't build this, or ask for help. But just to let them know that, hey, what you're feeling is okay, and you're not in trouble for what you're feeling, but here's a way that you can handle how you feel. And then that will build the self-regulation, because they'll remember that in the future and learn how to do that with other emotions as well. And then we have our social development. And chapter 6 is also the chapter that discusses social development. And the major factor in social development for infants and toddlers is attachment. There's different forms of attachment. Some are bad and some are good. Every child is going to be attached in some way. But page 199 explains how parents should choose a caregiver who is consistent and sensitive. Most parents today have to choose a caregiver, whether it's a babysitter every once in a while or their child goes to daycare, but they need to remember that you need to pick somebody early on and keep it consistent. But that person also needs to be sensitive to your child's needs, giving them love and attention and just being involved in their life. And that will help in all the other aspects besides just social as well. And all of this information does come from our book, Development Through Lifespan. Thanks for listening today, guys.